I sat in the back corner of the boardroom, my laptop balanced on my knees because there weren't enough chairs at the table. There never were. The executives filled the leather seats around the polished mahogany table, 12 men in suits that cost more than my monthly rent. And Margaret Chen, the only other woman in the room, who'd made it clear years ago that she hadn't climbed this far to help anyone else up. "Gentlemen, Margaret," my boss Richard Castellano began, standing at the head of the table with a clicker in his hand. "Thank you for joining us today. We're here to present the Nexus AI system to our client, Quantum Financial. This system represents 18 months of development and will revolutionize how they handle algorithmic trading." I watched him click through the presentation slides, my slides, the ones I'd built at 3 in the morning last Tuesday, fueled by cold coffee and the desperate hope that this time, maybe this time, I'd get the recognition I'd earned. Each slide showed architecture diagrams, code efficiency metrics, security protocols. My work, my system, my 18 months of 16-hour days and weekends I'd never get back. Richard didn't look at me once. "The Nexus system," he continued, "was developed by our team here at Castellano Tech, led by myself and our senior architect, David Morrison." David sat 2 seats down from Richard, nodding along like he'd done anything more than approve my proposals and take credit in the weekly meetings. He joined the company 6 months ago. 6 months! I'd been here for 5 years. Across the table, the client representatives from Quantum Financial watched with varying degrees of interest. There were 4 of them, but my eyes kept returning to the woman at the far end. She was in her 50s, with silver hair cut short and sharp, wearing a black suit that looked both expensive and practical. She hadn't spoken yet, but she'd been taking notes since the presentation started, and something about the way she watched Richard made my stomach tight with an emotion I couldn't quite name. "Now, I know you have questions about implementation," Richard said, advancing to the next slide. "And I want to assure you that our team has the expertise to handle every aspect of deployment." "I have a question," the silver-haired woman said. Her voice was quiet but carried weight, the kind of voice that made everyone else stop talking. "Who wrote the core algorithm?" Richard smiled, that practice smile he used with clients. As I mentioned, our senior architect David Morrison led the technical development. "That's not what I asked." She set down her pen and looked directly at Richard. "I asked who wrote it, the actual code, the architecture." There was a pause, barely a heartbeat, but I felt it stretch out like a chasm opening in the floor. "Well, it was a team effort," Richard said smoothly. "David oversaw the development, and we had several junior developers contributing." "Her name is Maya Patel," the woman interrupted. She was looking at me now, and I felt my face flush hot. She's sitting in the back corner with a laptop on her knees because apparently there wasn't room for her at the table. The boardroom went silent. I could hear the air conditioning humming, the distant sound of traffic from 20 floors below, my own heartbeat loud in my ears. Richard's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen," the woman said, standing up. "Chief Technology Officer of Quantum Financial. And before that I spent 15 years at MIT teaching computer science." One of my former students is Maya Patel, who graduated top of her class and went on to publish 3 papers on neural network optimization that are now considered foundational in the field. I couldn't breathe. "Dr. Chen." I'd taken her advanced algorithms course 7 years ago, spent hours in her office hours debugging code and talking about the future of AI. I'd sent her an email when I got this job, thanking her for the recommendation letter she'd written. She'd responded with 2 words, "Make waves." I hadn't made waves. I'd kept my head down and done the work and let men like Richard and David take credit because that's what you did if you wanted to keep your job. "Dr. Chen," Richard said, and I could hear the strain in his voice now, the careful control starting to crack. "I assure you that Miss Patel is a valued member of our team. Then why isn't she at the table?" Dr. Chen picked up the presentation packet Richard had distributed. "I've been reading through this proposal for the past 20 minutes. The architecture is brilliant. The optimization algorithms are elegant. The security protocols are some of the most sophisticated I've seen outside of government contracts. She looked at Richard. This isn't the work of a team. This is the work of one person with a singular vision and the technical expertise to execute it. I appreciate your confidence in our team, Richard said, but I think you're overestimating. I'm not overestimating anything. Dr. Chen turned to me. Maya, did you write the Nexus system? Every eye in the room turned to me. I felt pinned to my chair in the corner, my laptop suddenly weighing 1,000 pounds on my knees. My voice came out hoarse. I cleared my throat. I wrote the core algorithm and the primary architecture. David approved the design documents, and Richard oversaw the project timeline. Approved, Dr. Chen repeated. Oversaw. She looked back at Richard. So she did the work, and you took the credit. Now wait just a minute. Richard's face was turning red. Miss Patel is a junior developer. She doesn't have the experience or the qualifications to lead a project of this magnitude. The words hit me like a physical blow. Junior developer, after 5 years. After 3 promotions that came with new responsibilities but no new title. After 18 months of building a system that would make this company millions. Not qualified, Dr. Chen said softly. She sat back down and folded her hands on the table. Mr. Castellano, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen very carefully. The boardroom was so quiet I could hear someone's watch ticking. 3 months ago, when Quantum Financial was evaluating proposals for this project, we received submissions from 8 different firms. Yours was the most expensive and, frankly, the least impressive. Dr. Chen opened her folder and pulled out a document. But then I received an email from Maya Patel. She didn't know I was involved in the evaluation. We hadn't spoken in years. She just wanted to share some research she'd been doing on algorithmic trading optimization. She thought I might find it interesting for my work. I remembered that email. I'd sent it on a Sunday night, sitting in my apartment, thinking about Dr. Chen's class and how she'd always encouraged us to share our work with the community. I hadn't expected a response. The research she sent me, Dr. Chen continued, was the foundation of the Nexus system. I recognized it immediately when I read your proposal. The same elegant solutions, the same innovative approaches. So I did some digging. She pulled out more papers. I found her name buried in the technical documentation. I found her commits in the code repository, thousands of them, spanning 18 months. I found her name on the patent applications, listed third after yours and Mr. Morrison's, even though the patent attorney's notes indicate she was the primary inventor. Richard opened his mouth, but no sound came out. So when you tell me that Maya Patel isn't qualified to lead this project, Dr. Chen said, her voice sharp as broken glass, what I hear is that you're not qualified to recognize talent when it's sitting in the back corner of your boardroom. One of the other quantum representatives, a man in his 40s with graying temples, cleared his throat. Sarah, are you saying I'm saying that Quantum Financial will not be moving forward with Castellano Tech? Dr. Chen said. She began gathering her papers. We came here today to finalize a $12 million contract. Instead, we've discovered that the company we were about to partner with doesn't value its most talented employee. That's not a company we want to do business with. Dr. Chen, please. Richard was standing now, his hands spread in a placating gesture. I think there's been a misunderstanding. There's been no misunderstanding. Dr. Chen stood and looked at me. Maya, do you have a non-compete clause in your employment contract? I blinked, trying to process the sudden shift. Yes. 2 years. Does it prevent you from accepting a position with a client of Castellano Tech? My mind raced. I'd signed so many documents when I started here, barely reading them because I was just grateful to have a job. I don't know. Find out. Dr. Chen handed me her business card. Because Quantum Financial is looking for a chief high architect. The position comes with a salary of $350,000, full benefits, and equity. I'd like to offer it to you. The boardroom erupted. Richard was talking, his voice loud and angry. David was saying something about proprietary code. Margaret Chen was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. The other executives were all talking at once, a chaos of voices and objections. But I only heard Dr. Chen. $350,000. I was currently making $72,000. I stood up, my laptop nearly sliding off my knees. I caught it, held it against my chest like a shield. I need to think about this. Of course. Dr. Chen smiled. And it was the same smile I remembered from her office hours, warm and encouraging and full of the kind of confidence I'd forgotten I used to have. Take your time. But Maya, don't let anyone tell you you're not qualified. You built something extraordinary. Own it. She walked out of the boardroom and the other quantum representatives followed her. The door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Richard turned to me, and his face was a mask of barely controlled fury. My office. Now. I looked at him, at this man who'd taken credit for my work for 18 months, who'd called me a junior developer in front of clients, who'd never once asked if I wanted a seat at the table. And I felt something shift inside me, like a door I'd been holding closed had finally blown open. No, I said. Excuse me. I said no. I picked up my bag from the floor beside my chair. I'm going to call a lawyer and find out about my non-compete clause. And then I'm going to seriously consider Dr. Chan's offer. If you walk out of here, you're fired. I looked around the boardroom, at the men in expensive suits who'd sat here for an hour listening to Richard present my work as his own and hadn't said a word. At Margaret, who was still staring at me with that unreadable expression. At David, who wouldn't meet my eyes. Then I guess I'm fired, I said. I walked out of the boardroom with my laptop clutched to my chest and my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. The hallway stretched out in front of me, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the gray carpet worn thin from years of people walking the same path. I didn't look back. The elevator ride down felt like falling. 20 floors, each one marked by a soft ding that echoed in the empty metal box. I watched the numbers descend 19, 18, 17 and tried to process what had just happened. I'd quit, or been fired, or both. 18 months of work gone. 5 years at Castellano Tech, erased. My career possibly destroyed, depending on what that non-compete clause actually said. And yet, standing there in the elevator with my laptop bag over my shoulder and Dr. Chen's business card in my pocket, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt alive. The lobby was all glass and marble, designed to impress clients and intimidate employees. I walked through it without looking at the receptionist, pushed through the revolving doors, and stepped out into the November afternoon. The air was cold and sharp, carrying the smell of roasting chestnuts from a street vendor and exhaust from the constant traffic. I pulled up my phone and called the only lawyer I knew, my college roommate Jessica, who'd gone to law school while I was getting my master's in computer science. We'd stayed in touch over the years, meeting for drinks every few months, complaining about our respective careers over wine and appetizers. She answered on the third ring. Maya, what's wrong? How do you know something's wrong? Because you never call me during work hours. What happened? I told her everything. The presentation, Dr. Chan, Richard calling me unqualified, the job offer, walking out. The words stumbled over each other, and by the time I finished, I was sitting on a bench in the small park across from my office building, watching people hurry past with their coffee cups and their purposeful strides. Jessica was quiet for a moment. Then, holy shit, yeah, okay. First things first, do you have a copy of your employment contract? I think so. It's in my email somewhere. Find it and send it to me. I need to see the exact language of the non-compete. But Maya, I have to tell you, most non-competes aren't enforceable if the employee was terminated. I don't know if I was terminated or if I quit. Doesn't matter. Richard threatened to fire you, and you left. That's constructive dismissal. Plus, if you can prove he was taking credit for your work, that's potentially fraud. I could hear her typing. This Dr. Chen, you trust her? I thought about Dr. Chen's advanced algorithms class, about the hours she'd spent helping me debug code, about the recommendation letter that had gotten me into the graduate program at Stanford, about the email I'd sent her 3 months ago, just sharing research because I thought she'd find it interesting, with no expectation of anything in return. Yes, I said. I trust her. Good. Send me that contract, and I'll review it tonight. In the meantime, don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, and document everything that happened in that boardroom while it's fresh in your mind. After we hung up, I sat on the bench for a long time, watching the sun move across the sky. Office workers came and went, some glancing at me curiously, a woman in business casuals sitting alone on a park bench in the middle of the afternoon, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is David Morrison. We need to talk." I stared at the message. David, who'd taken credit for my architecture designs. David, who'd approved my proposals and then presented them as his own ideas in meetings. David, who made twice my salary for doing a quarter of the work. I deleted the message without responding. Another buzz. This time, an email from HR. "Ms. Patel, please return to the office immediately to discuss your employment status and return company property." I looked at my laptop bag. The laptop inside was mine. I'd bought it myself 2 years ago because the company issued one was too slow for the kind of development work I was doing. But there were files on it, code I'd written, documentation for the Nexus system. My phone rang. "Jessica, don't go back to the office," she said without preamble. "I just got your contract. The non-compete is garbage. It's way too broad to be enforceable. But more importantly, I found something interesting in the intellectual property clause." "What?" "Any work you do on your own time, with your own equipment, belongs to you, not the company." I sat up straighter. "I bought my own laptop. And I'm guessing you did a lot of work on it outside of office hours? Nights, weekends. I practically lived on that laptop for 18 months. Then the code on it might be yours." "But Maya, this is complicated. We need to be very careful about how we handle this." She paused. "I'm going to send you to a colleague of mine who specializes in tech employment law. Her name is Patricia Okafor, and she's brilliant. Can you meet with her tomorrow morning? I don't know if I can afford. She'll do a consultation for free. After that, we'll figure it out. But Maya, don't delete anything from that laptop. Don't return it to the company. And don't talk to anyone from Castellano Tech without a lawyer present." I spent the rest of the afternoon in a coffee shop, documenting everything I could remember from the boardroom meeting. Dr. Chen's questions, Richard's responses, the exact words he'd used. "She's not qualified." The way the other executives had sat there in silence, complicit in their inaction. I wrote down dates and times every late night I'd spent coding, every weekend I'd sacrificed, every meeting where Richard or David had presented my work as their own. I pulled up my commit history in the code repository, took screenshots showing thousands of commits over 18 months, most of them made outside of normal business hours. By the time the coffee shop closed at 6, I had a 40-page document that read like an indictment. I went home to my small studio apartment in Queens, the one I could barely afford on my $72,000 salary. The apartment where I'd spent so many nights hunched over my laptop, building something extraordinary while the city slept around me. I made instant ramen for dinner because it was cheap and I didn't know when my next paycheck would come. I ate it sitting on my bed, staring at the wall, trying to process the fact that my entire life had changed in the span of 3 hours. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, another text. "Maya, this is Margaret Chen from the board meeting. I'd like to speak with you. It's important." Margaret Chen, the only other woman in that boardroom, the one who'd made it clear she wasn't interested in helping other women climb. I almost deleted the message, but something made me hesitate. I texted back. "About what?" The response came immediately. "About what happened today, and about what's going to happen next. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow afternoon?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "Maybe. I'll let you know." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed watching shadows move across my ceiling, thinking about Dr. Chen's offer. $350,000. Equity. A title that matched my actual skills and experience. But also, a new city, a new company, a new start. Leaving behind 5 years of my life, even if those 5 years had been spent being undervalued and overlooked. At 2 in the morning, I got up and opened my laptop. I pulled up the Nexus code, scrolling through thousands of lines I'd written, debugged, optimized. This was mine, not Richard's, not David's. Mine. I created a new repository and began the careful process of separating my personal work from the company's. The core algorithm I'd developed on my own time. The optimization techniques I'd researched independently. The security protocols I'd designed based on my own published papers. By dawn, I had a clean copy of everything that belonged to me. The foundation of the Nexus system, stripped of any company-specific implementation. My work, my intellectual property. I backed it up in 3 different places, then finally allowed myself to sleep. The next morning, I met Patricia Okafor in her office in Midtown. She was in her 40s, with dark skin and sharp eyes, wearing a suit that looked both professional and somehow comfortable. Her office was lined with bookshelves full of legal texts and framed degrees from Harvard and Columbia. "Jessica told me about your situation," she said after we'd settled into chairs across from her desk. "I've reviewed your employment contract, and I have good news and complicated news. Start with the good news. The non-compete is unenforceable. It's too broad, too restrictive, and given that you were constructively dismissed, a court would almost certainly void it." She pulled out a document. "The complicated news is the intellectual property situation. Castellano Tech is going to argue that everything you created while employed there belongs to them. Even work I did on my own time with my own equipment. That's where it gets interesting. Your contract has a clause that says work done on your own time with your own resources belongs to you, but only if it's not related to the company's business." She looked at me over her reading glasses. "The Nexus system is very much related to the company's business." My stomach sank. "So they own it?" "Not necessarily. There's a strong argument that the foundational work, the research, the core algorithms, the optimization techniques was yours before you ever applied it to the Nexus project, especially if you can prove you were developing these concepts independently. I thought about the papers I'd published, the research I'd been doing since graduate school. I can prove it. Good. Because here's what I think is going to happen. Castellano Tech is going to threaten to sue you if you take the job with Quantum Financial. They're going to claim you're stealing trade secrets and violating your non-compete. They're going to try to intimidate you into staying quiet and going away. And if I don't..." Patricia smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who enjoyed a good fight. "Then we fight back. We file a complaint with the labor board about wage theft and credit misappropriation. We threaten to expose their pattern of taking credit for employees' work. We make it clear that if they come after you, we're going to make their lives very difficult." That sounds expensive. It will be. But Maya, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I can tell you right now you have a strong case. Strong enough that I'm willing to take it on contingency if it comes to that. Contingency? I don't get paid unless you win. And when you win, I take a percentage of the settlement. She leaned back in her chair. But I don't think it'll come to that. I think once Castellano Tech realizes you're serious about fighting, they'll back down. Companies like that don't want the publicity of a lawsuit that exposes how they treat their employees. I left Patricia's office feeling something between hope and terror. She'd given me a roadmap, but it was a roadmap through a minefield. My phone buzzed as I stepped out onto the street. A text from Margaret Chen. "Have you thought about meeting? I have information you need to hear." I stared at the message, then made a decision. I texted back, "Coffee at 3 p.m. You pick the place." She responded with an address in Chelsea, a small cafe I'd never heard of. I had 4 hours to kill, so I went to the public library and spent them researching employment law, intellectual property rights, and every case I could find similar to mine. The cafe Margaret had chosen was quiet and upscale, the kind of place where coffee cost $8 and came in handmade ceramic cups. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, wearing a different suit than yesterday but the same expression of careful neutrality. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "You said you had information." "I do." She pushed a manila folder across the table. "But first, I want to apologize." I blinked. "For what?" "For sitting there yesterday and saying nothing while Richard humiliated you. For letting you sit in the back corner for 5 years while men took credit for your work. For being part of the problem." She looked down at her coffee. I told myself I was being strategic. That speaking up would cost me my position, my influence. That I could do more good by staying in the room than by making waves. And now I realize I was just being a coward. She gestured to the folder. "Open it." Inside were printouts of emails, meeting notes, financial documents. I scanned them quickly, my heart rate increasing with each page. "These are internal communications," I said slowly. "About the Nexus project." "About you," Margaret corrected. Richard has been taking credit for your work since day one. But more than that, he's been actively suppressing your career advancement. Every time you were up for a promotion, he blocked it. Every time someone suggested giving you more responsibility, he argued you weren't ready. I found an email dated 6 months ago from Richard to HR. Maya Patel is a competent developer but lacks the leadership skills necessary for advancement. Recommend maintaining her current position and salary. Competent. After I'd built a system that was about to lend the company a $12 million contract. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Margaret met my eyes. Because yesterday, watching Dr. Chen call out Richard's bullshit, I realized something. I've spent 15 years climbing the corporate ladder by playing it safe, by not rocking the boat, by being one of the boys. And what do I have to show for it? A seat at a table where I watch talented women get pushed aside while mediocre men take credit for their work. That doesn't answer my question. I'm showing you this because you're going to need ammunition. Richard is already talking to the legal team about suing you if you take the quantum job. He's claiming you stole proprietary code, that you violated your employment agreement, that you're acting in bad faith. She tapped the folder. These documents prove he's been acting in bad faith for years. They prove a pattern of discrimination and credit theft, and they're yours to use however you need to. I looked at the folder, at the evidence of 5 years of systematic suppression. This could get you fired. Probably. Margaret smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd seen from her. But you know what? I'm tired of being complicit. I'm tired of being the woman who made it and then pulled up the ladder behind her. So yes, this might cost me my job, but keeping quiet yesterday already cost me something more important. What? My self-respect. We sat in silence for a moment, the cafe bustling around us with the afternoon rush of people seeking caffeine and Wi-Fi. There's something else, Margaret said. David Morrison has been talking. He's telling people you seduced him to get access to his work, that you manipulated him into putting your name on the patents. Rage, white-hot and blinding, flooded through me. That's a lie. I know it is, but it's the story he's telling, and some people are believing it. She pulled out another document. So I got this from It's a record of every interaction David logged with you over the past 6 months. Every email, every meeting, every code review. All professional, all documented, nothing even remotely inappropriate. He's trying to destroy my reputation. He's trying to protect his own. Because if the truth comes out that you did all the work and he just approved it, then his career is over. Margaret finished her coffee. Maya, you need to understand something. These men aren't going to let you walk away quietly. They're going to fight dirty because they have everything to lose. And what do I have to lose? Nothing, she said simply. You've already lost your job. Your reputation is already being attacked. You're already at the bottom. Which means you're free to fight back in ways they never expected. I left the cafe with the folder tucked under my arm, feeling like I was carrying a bomb. The documents Margaret had given me were explosive proof of discrimination, credit theft, systematic suppression of my career. In the right hands, they could destroy Richard's credibility and possibly bring down David too. But they could also make me a target. My phone rang as I was walking to the subway. Dr. Chen. Maya, she said when I answered. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. No, it's fine. I'm just processing everything. I can imagine. Listen, I want you to know that my offer stands, regardless of what Castellano Tech does. If they try to sue you, Quantum Financial will cover your legal fees. If they try to intimidate you, we'll stand behind you. You're not alone in this. Something in my chest loosened slightly. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. Because 7 years ago, you sat in my office hours and told me you wanted to change the world with code. And then you went out and actually did it. Her voice was warm. Because I've spent my entire career watching brilliant women get pushed aside by mediocre men, and I'm tired of it. And because, frankly, you're the best high architect I've encountered in a decade, and I want you on my team. I haven't said yes yet. I know. Take your time. But Maya, don't let fear make this decision for you. Don't let Richard or David or anyone else convince you that you're not good enough. You built something extraordinary. Own it. After we hung up, I stood on the subway platform watching trains come and go, thinking about choices and consequences and the cost of staying silent versus the cost of speaking up. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Jessica. Patricia says you have a strong case. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. I looked at the message, at the folder under my arm, at Dr. Chen's business card in my pocket, at the choice in front of me: stay quiet and disappear, or fight back and risk everything. The train pulled into the station, doors opening with a hydraulic hiss. I stepped inside and found a seat, the folder balanced on my lap like a promise or a threat. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Dr. Chen. I need to think about it. Can I have until Monday? Her response came immediately. Of course, take all the time you need. But I already knew what my answer would be. I'd known it the moment I walked out of that boardroom, the moment Dr. Chen had asked who really wrote the code, the moment I'd finally stopped being quiet. I was going to fight. I spent the weekend in my apartment preparing for war. Saturday morning, I met with Patricia Okafor again, this time with Margaret's documents spread across her conference table like evidence at a crime scene. This is gold, Patricia said, flipping through the emails. This shows a clear pattern of discrimination and credit misappropriation. If Castellano Tech tries to sue you, we can countersue for wage theft, fraud, and possibly gender discrimination. Will it come to that? Depends on how stupid Richard wants to be. She made notes on a legal pad. Here's what I think happens next. Monday morning, you're going to receive a cease and desist letter. It'll threaten legal action if you accept the quantum position or use any knowledge gained during your employment. It'll be full of scary legal language designed to make you back down. And what do? You forward it to me, and I'll respond with our own letter. We'll lay out your case, the IP clause in your contract, the work you did on your own time, the documented pattern of credit theft. We'll make it clear that if they want to fight, we're ready to give them one. She looked up at me. But Maya, I need you to be sure about this. Once we send that letter, there's no going back. This becomes public. Your name gets attached to a lawsuit. It could affect your career for years. I thought about the past 5 years. The late nights, the stolen credit, the promotions that never came. The way Richard had called me not qualified in front of clients while presenting my work as his own. I'm sure, I said. Sunday, I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my parents. They lived in New Jersey, in the same house where I'd grown up, where my mother had taught me to code on an old desktop computer when I was 12. Maya, my mother answered on the second ring, her voice warm with surprise. Is everything okay? I told them everything. About the boardroom, about Dr. Chen, about walking out, about the job offer and the threats and the choice I was making. My father, who'd been listening on speakerphone, was quiet for a long moment. Then, do you remember what I told you when you got into MIT? You told me a lot of things. I told you that the world would try to make you small. That people would see a young Indian woman in tech and assume you were there to fill a quota or because someone felt sorry for you. That you'd have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. His voice was steady, certain. But I also told you that you were brilliant enough to prove them all wrong. And you have, Beta. You've built something extraordinary. I'm scared, I admitted. Good, my mother said. Fear means you understand the stakes, but don't let it paralyze you. You didn't come this far to let mediocre men take credit for your genius. After we hung up, I sat on my bed feeling something shift inside me. My parents had immigrated to the US 30 years ago with nothing but their education and their determination. They'd faced discrimination, struggled to find work, built a life from scratch, and they'd raised me to believe I could do anything. I wasn't going to let Richard Castellano or David Morrison or anyone else make a liar out of them. Monday morning arrived cold and bright. I woke up early, dressed in my best suit, the navy one I'd bought for job interviews 5 years ago and barely worn since, and took the subway into Manhattan. Not to Castellano Tech, to Quantum Financial's headquarters in the financial district. Dr. Chen had texted me Sunday night. Come by tomorrow morning if you can. I want to show you something. The Quantum building was all glass and steel, 50 stories of cutting-edge architecture that made Castellano Tech's offices look dated by comparison. The lobby had a security desk and turnstiles, and when I gave my name, the guard smiled and handed me a visitor badge. Dr. Chen is expecting you. 42nd floor. The elevator was fast and smooth, nothing like the creaky one at my old office. When the doors opened, I stepped into a space that looked more like a tech startup than a financial firm. Open floor plan, standing desks, walls covered in whiteboards filled with equations and diagrams. Dr. Chen met me at the elevator. "Maya, thank you for coming. You said you wanted to show me something." "I do. Follow me." She led me through the office, past developers hunched over keyboards and data scientists arguing about models, to a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. The view was breathtaking. You could see all the way to the Statue of Liberty. "This would be your office," Dr. Chen said. I stared at the space. It was easily 3 times the size of Richard's office. There was a standing desk, a comfortable chair, a small conference table, and a couch by the windows. "I don't understand. The chief high architect position comes with a corner office. I wanted you to see it before you made your decision." She walked to the windows. "Maya, I'm not going to pressure you. If you decide this isn't right for you, I'll understand. But I want you to know what you'd be walking into. This isn't just a job. It's a chance to build something from the ground up, to lead a team, to have your name on the work you create. Richard's going to sue me. Probably. And we'll fight it. Quantum has excellent lawyers and deep pockets. But more than that, we have the truth on our side." She turned to face me. "You built the Nexus system. You wrote the code, designed the architecture, solved the problems. That's not something Richard can take away with a lawsuit." My phone buzzed. An email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line: "Cease and desist urgent." Patricia had been right. Monday morning. Right on schedule. I opened it and skimmed the contents. Legal threats, accusations of trade secret theft, demands that I decline the Quantum position and return all company property immediately. It was signed by Castellano Tech's legal counsel. "They're fast," I said, showing Dr. Chen the email. She read it, her expression darkening. "They're all so desperate. This is exactly the kind of overreach that makes companies look bad in court." She handed my phone back. "What are you going to do?" I looked around the office. My office, potentially. At the view, at the space, at the future it represented. Then I looked at Dr. Chen, at this woman who'd taken a chance on me 7 years ago and was taking another chance now. "I'm going to forward this to my lawyer," I said. "And then I'm going to accept your offer." Dr. Chen smiled. "Welcome to Quantum Financial, Maya." We shook hands, and I felt something settle into place, like a puzzle piece finally finding its home. The rest of Monday was a blur. I forwarded the cease and desist to Patricia, who responded within an hour with a letter of her own, 3 pages of legal arguments and thinly veiled threats that made me grateful she was on my side. I signed the employment contract with Quantum, went through orientation with HR, met my new team. By the time I left the office at 6, I had a new email address, a new ID badge, and a start date 2 weeks away. I also had 17 missed calls from Castellano Tech. Tuesday morning, Patricia called me. "They want to meet." "Who does?" "Richard's lawyers. They're requesting a mediation session. They say they want to resolve this matter amicably before it escalates." Translation. They're scared. The letter I sent them laid out a very strong case for credit theft and discrimination. They know if this goes to court, it's going to be ugly and public, so they want to negotiate. What do they want? I don't know yet. But Maya, this is actually good news. It means they're taking us seriously. It means they know they're on shaky ground. She paused. "Are you willing to meet with them?" I thought about Richard's face in the boardroom, about the way he'd called me unqualified. About 5 years of being overlooked and undervalued. "Only if you're there with me. Wouldn't have it any other way." The mediation was scheduled for Thursday afternoon in a neutral conference room at a law office in Midtown. Patricia and I arrived 15 minutes early, and she used the time to coach me. "Let me do most of the talking. If they ask you a direct question, answer it honestly but briefly. Don't volunteer information. Don't let them make you angry. That's what they want. They want you emotional and off balance. I can handle it. I know you can. But just in case, if you need a break, just say so. We can call a recess anytime." Richard arrived with 2 lawyers, both men in expensive suits carrying leather briefcases. He looked older than I remembered, with new lines around his eyes and gray in his hair that hadn't been there last week. He didn't look at me. David Morrison came in behind them, and my stomach clenched. He'd always been easier to deal with than Richard, friendlier, more approachable. But now, seeing him here, I remembered what Margaret had told me about the rumors he was spreading. The mediator was a woman in her 60s named Susan Hartley, with steel gray hair and the kind of calm authority that suggested she'd seen every trick in the book. She sat at the head of the table and laid out the ground rules: respectful communication, good faith negotiation, everything confidential. "Mr. Castellano," she said, "your team requested this mediation. Would you like to begin?" Richard's lead lawyer, a man named Thomas Brennan, cleared his throat. "Thank you, Miss Hartley. We're here today because we believe there's been a misunderstanding. Miss Patel was a valued employee at Castellano Tech, and we're concerned that she may have been misled about the nature of her contributions to the Nexus project." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Misled by whom?" "By outside parties who may have their own agenda." Thomas looked at me for the first time. "Miss Patel, we understand that Dr. Sarah Chen made you a very generous offer, but we want you to understand that accepting that offer could have serious legal consequences. Are you threatening my client?" Patricia's voice was sharp. "We're informing her of the reality. The Nexus system was developed using Castellano Tech resources during work hours as part of her employment. The intellectual property belongs to the company." "Except that's not true." Patricia pulled out a document. "Miss Patel's employment contract clearly states that work done on her own time, with her own equipment, belongs to her. And we have extensive documentation showing that the foundational work for Nexus was done on her personal laptop, outside of office hours. The foundational work is still derivative of research she published before she ever worked for you." Patricia laid out copies of my academic papers, 3 peer-reviewed publications on neural network optimization, all published during her graduate studies at Stanford. The core algorithms in Nexus are based on this research that predates her employment at Castellano Tech by 2 years. Thomas's expression flickered. He glanced at Richard, who was staring at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. We weren't aware of those publications," Thomas said carefully. "Clearly, because if you had been, you wouldn't have sent a cease and desist letter accusing Miss Patel of stealing trade secrets that were actually her own work to begin with." Patricia leaned forward. "So let's cut through the posturing. What do you actually want?" Richard spoke for the first time. "I want Maya to understand that she's making a mistake. That Quantum is using her to get access to our system. And when they're done with her, she'll be left with nothing. Is that your professional opinion?" I said quietly. "Or are you just angry that someone finally called you out for taking credit for my work?" "Maya, no," I cut him off. "You don't get to Maya me. You don't get to pretend we're colleagues or friends. You spent 5 years suppressing my career, blocking my promotions, and presenting my work as your own. And when a client asked to actually build the system, you called me unqualified." The room went silent. "I have emails," I continued, my voice steady. "Documentation of every time you took credit for my code. Every meeting where you presented my designs as yours. Every promotion you blocked. Margaret Chen gave them to me." Richard's face went pale. "Margaret wouldn't, she did. Because she was tired of being complicit in your bullshit." I looked at David. "And you? You're telling people I seduced you? That I manipulated you into putting my name on patents?" David shifted uncomfortably. "I never said yes." "You did, and it's a lie. We have HR records of every interaction we had. All professional, all documented. So if you want to keep spreading that story, go ahead. But know that when this goes public, and it will go public, everyone will see exactly what kind of person you are." Susan Hartley cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should take a short break." "No," Richard said. "No. I want to finish this." He looked at me directly for the first time. "What do you want, Maya? Money? A settlement? What's it going to take for you to go away quietly?" And there it was, the real question. What would it take to make me disappear? To let him keep his reputation and his company and his stolen credit? I thought about my parents, about Dr. Chen, about the corner office with the view of the harbor. About 5 years of being small and quiet and grateful for scraps. "I want you to tell the truth," I said. Richard blinked. "What? I want you to send an email to every client, every employee, every board member. I want you to tell them that I was the lead architect on the Nexus system, that I wrote the core code, designed the architecture, and solved the technical problems. I want you to correct the record on every presentation, every proposal, every patent application where you took credit for my work. That's ridiculous. I can't. Then we go to court. Patricia's voice was calm. And we file complaints with the labor board. And we contact every tech journalist we can find and tell them the story of how Castellano Tech systematically stole credit from a female engineer for 5 years. How you blocked her promotions, suppressed her career, and then tried to intimidate her when she finally spoke up. Thomas was whispering urgently to Richard. David looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. We need to discuss this privately, Thomas said finally. Take your time, Patricia said. We'll be right here. Richard and his lawyers left the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see them arguing in the hallway. Richard's face red, Thomas gesturing emphatically. You did good, Patricia said quietly. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. But Maya, you stood your ground. You told the truth. That's all you can do. They came back 20 minutes later. Richard looked defeated. His shoulders slumped, his expensive suit suddenly seeming too big for him. We'll agree to a correction, Thomas said. A statement acknowledging Miss Patel's contributions to the Nexus project. It will be sent to relevant parties and posted on the company website. Not good enough, Patricia said. We want a full accounting. Every project she worked on, every patent she contributed to, every piece of code she wrote. Her name gets added to everything it should have been on from the beginning. That's non-negotiable. You took credit for 5 years of her work. Now you're going to give it back. Thomas looked at Richard, who closed his eyes and nodded once. Fine, Thomas said. We'll agree to that. In exchange, Miss Patel signs a release agreeing not to pursue further legal action against Castellano Tech or its employees. And you drop the cease and desist, Patricia added. You acknowledge that she's free to work for Quantum Financial without restriction. You admit that the IP claims were baseless. Another whispered consultation. Another reluctant nod from Richard. Agreed. Susan Hartley began drafting the settlement agreement, her fingers flying across her laptop keyboard. The room was silent except for the clicking of keys and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. I looked at Richard, at this man who'd controlled my career for 5 years, and felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity. Just a vast empty distance. Why did you do it? I asked quietly. He looked up, surprised. What? Why did you take credit for my work? You're smart enough to have built something yourself. Why steal mine? Richard was quiet for a long moment. Then, because it was easier. Because clients trust experience over talent. Because a 45-year-old white man with an MBA is more credible than a 28-year-old Indian woman with a computer science degree, no matter how brilliant she is. He looked down at his hands. Because I could. It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. Susan finished the agreement and printed copies for everyone. We read through it carefully, 3 pages of legal language that boiled down to this. Castellano Tech would publicly acknowledge my contributions, correct the record on all my work, and leave me alone. In exchange, I wouldn't sue them into oblivion. I signed my name at the bottom, and it felt like closing a door on one life and opening another. Walking out of that conference, waking out of that mediation room felt different than walking out of the boardroom had a week ago. Then, I'd been running from humiliation, from injustice, from a situation I couldn't control. Now, I was walking toward something, toward a future I'd chosen, a reputation I'd reclaimed, a truth I'd forced into the light. Patricia and I took the elevator down in silence. When we reached the lobby, she turned to me with a smile that was equal parts pride and relief. You know what you just did? She asked. Got my name back? You changed the game. Most people in your situation would have taken a settlement and disappeared. You made them admit what they did. You made them correct the record. That matters, Maya. Not just for you, but for every woman who comes after you. We stepped out onto the street, into the late afternoon chaos of Midtown Manhattan. The November air was cold and sharp, carrying the smell of roasting nuts and car exhaust and the particular energy of a city that never stopped moving. What happens now? I asked. Now, Castellano Tech has 30 days to issue the corrections. I'll monitor to make sure they comply. If they don't, we go back to court. She adjusted her briefcase. But I don't think they will. Richard knows he got off easy. If this had gone to trial, the discovery process alone would have destroyed him. And the cease and desist. Dead. You're free to start at Quantum whenever you want. Free to work on whatever you want. Free to build your career without anyone taking credit for it. She extended her hand. Congratulations, Maya. You won. I shook her hand, but the word felt strange. Won. Like this had been a competition rather than a fight for basic recognition, basic dignity, basic truth. But maybe that's what winning looked like sometimes. Not a trophy or a celebration, but simply the right to exist in your own story as the protagonist instead of the footnote. I took the subway back to Queens, watching the city blur past the windows. My phone buzzed constantly, messages from Jessica congratulating me, from Dr. Chen asking how it went, from my parents wanting to know if I was okay. And one message from Margaret Chen. I heard, "I'm proud of you." When I got home to my studio apartment, I sat on my bed and pulled out my laptop. The Nexus code was still there, backed up and documented, proof of 18 months of work that now had my name on it officially. But I didn't open it. Instead, I created a new file and started writing. Not code this time, a blog post, an essay, a story about what had happened over the past week, the boardroom, the humiliation, the fight, the victory, about what it meant to be a woman in tech, to have your work stolen, to find the courage to speak up. I wrote for hours, the words pouring out like they'd been waiting for permission. I wrote about Richard and David, about Dr. Chen and Margaret, about Patricia and Jessica and my parents, about the choice between staying silent and fighting back, between accepting scraps and demanding what you'd earned. When I finished, it was past midnight. The essay was 5,000 words long, raw and honest, and probably too personal to publish. I published it anyway. I posted it on Medium, shared it on LinkedIn, sent it to tech blogs and women's professional networks. Then I closed my laptop and went to sleep, too exhausted to worry about the consequences. I woke up to my phone exploding. The essay had gone viral overnight. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments, messages from women in tech sharing their own stories of stolen credit and suppressed careers. Tech journalists were requesting interviews. Professional organizations were asking me to speak at conferences. And buried in the notifications was an email from Castellano Tech's PR team. The corrections you requested have been posted to our website and sent to all relevant parties. Please confirm receipt. I opened the link they'd included. There on Castellano Tech's homepage was a statement. Castellano Tech wishes to correct the record regarding the Nexus AI system. The primary architect and lead developer of this system was Maya Patel, who designed the core algorithms, wrote the majority of the code, and solved the key technical challenges that made the system viable. We regret any previous communications that did not adequately acknowledge Ms. Patel's contributions and are committed to ensuring proper attribution going forward. It was corporate and careful, stripped of any real admission of wrongdoing. But it was there, in writing, public, permanent, my name, finally attached to my work. I forwarded the email to Patricia, to Dr. Chen, to my parents. Then I got dressed and took the subway into Manhattan, to Quantum Financial's offices in the financial district. Dr. Chen was waiting for me in the lobby. I saw the essay, she said, and the statement from Castellano Tech. How are you feeling? Terrified, I admitted. I just told the entire tech industry about the worst week of my life. You told them the truth. And judging by the response, you're not the only one who's lived through something like this. She gestured toward the elevators. Come on, I want to show you something else. We rode up to the 42nd floor, to the corner office that would be mine in 2 weeks. But this time, it wasn't empty. There was a desk with a new laptop, a whiteboard covered in equations, and a small team of developers gathered around the conference table. Maya, Dr. Chen said, meet your team. They've been working on preliminary designs for our next generation trading system, but they've been waiting for their lead architect to arrive before moving forward. A young woman stood up from the table, extending her hand. I'm Priya. I read your papers on neural network optimization in grad school. They changed how I think about AI architecture. One by one, the team introduced themselves. Engineers and data scientists, some fresh out of school, others with years of experience. All of them looking at me not with skepticism or doubt, but with respect, with curiosity, with the expectation that I belonged exactly where I was standing. "We've been following the Nexus story," a developer named James said. "What you built is incredible. We're excited to see what you'll create here, Dr. Chen smiled. "I'll let you all get acquainted. Maya, take your time. Your official start date isn't for 2 weeks, but if you want to come in before then, the door's always open." After she left, I stood at the window looking out at the harbor, at the Statue of Liberty rising from the water, at the city spreading out in all directions. Behind me, my team was discussing algorithms and data structures, their voices overlapping in the particular rhythm of people who loved what they did. Maya, Priya appeared beside me. We were thinking about starting with the risk assessment module. "Do you have thoughts on the architecture?" I turned away from the window and walked to the whiteboard, picked up a marker, started drawing diagrams explaining concepts, answering questions, doing the work I loved with people who valued it. This was what winning looked like. Not revenge or vindication or even justice exactly. Just a simple, revolutionary act of being seen for who I actually was. 2 weeks later, I started officially at Quantum Financial. I moved out of my studio apartment in Queens into a 1-bedroom in Brooklyn with actual closet space and windows that let in real sunlight. I bought furniture that wasn't from IKEA, plants that I actually remembered to water, art for the walls that made the space feel like mine. The essay continued to circulate. I did interviews with tech publications, spoke on panels about women in STEM, connected with other engineers who'd had their work stolen. Some of them were fighting back now, inspired by my story. Others were just grateful to know they weren't alone. Castellano Tech's statement had consequences. 2 other female developers came forward with their own stories of credit theft. The board launched an investigation. Richard was placed on administrative leave pending the results. David Morrison left the company entirely, taking a position at a startup in Austin. He sent me an email before he left. "I'm sorry for what I said about you. I was scared and stupid. You deserved better." I didn't respond. Some apologies come too late to matter. Margaret Chen, surprisingly, kept her job. She became the interim CEO while the board searched for Richard's replacement, and one of her first acts was implementing new policies around credit attribution and career advancement for women and minorities. She sent me a text. "Turns out speaking up was good for my career too." Who knew? 3 months into my new job, Dr. Chen called me into her office. "I have news," she said. "The board approved funding for your proposal." I'd submitted a proposal for a new AI ethics initiative, a framework for ensuring that the systems we built were transparent, accountable, and fair. It was ambitious and expensive and exactly the kind of thing that would have been shot down immediately at Castellano Tech. "They approved the full budget?" I asked. "Every penny. They want you to lead it." She smiled. "Congratulations, Maya. You're now the director of AI ethics and architecture. That comes with a raise, a bigger team, and a seat at the executive table. A seat at the table, not in the corner with a laptop on my knees, but at the actual table where decisions were made. There's one condition," Dr. Chen added. "What's that?" "You have to keep writing. Keep telling your story. Keep making waves." She leaned back in her chair. "The tech industry needs more people willing to speak truth to power. More people willing to fight for what's right, even when it's hard. More people like you." That evening, I stood in my corner office watching the sun set over the harbor, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. My team had gone home for the day, leaving behind whiteboards covered in diagrams and half-empty coffee cups and the particular organized chaos of people building something new. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "We're so proud of you, Beta. Your grandmother would be too." I thought about my grandmother, who'd learned to code in her 50s just to understand what I was studying, who'd told me that the world would try to make me small, but that I was built for bigger things, who'd believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. She would have loved this office, this view, this life I was building. I pulled out my laptop and opened a new document, started writing another essay, this one about what came after the fight, about rebuilding, about learning to trust again, about the strange and difficult work of letting yourself be visible after years of being overlooked. Outside my window, the city lights began to flicker on. Thousands of them, millions of them. Each one a story of someone trying to make their mark on the world. Some would succeed, some would fail, some would have their work stolen and their contributions erased. But some would fight back, some would speak up, some would refuse to be made small. I was one of them now, and I wasn't going to stop. The essay I wrote that night was called After the Fight. What happens when you win? It was about the aftermath of going public, about the unexpected weight of being seen, about the responsibility that came with having a platform. It was about the women who'd reached out to share their stories, the ones who were still fighting, the ones who'd given up, about the systems that allowed men like Richard to thrive and women like me to be erased, about what it would take to change those systems, and whether one person's victory could ever be enough. I published it at midnight, then closed my laptop and looked out at the city one more time. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work. I'd lead my team, build new systems, push the boundaries of what I could do. I'd sit at the executive table and make decisions that affected thousands of people. I'd use my voice and my platform and my hard-won credibility to make space for others who were still fighting to be seen. But tonight, I just stood at my window in my corner office, looking out at the lights of Manhattan, and let myself feel it. Pride, relief, gratitude, hope, and underneath it all, running like a current through everything else, the quiet, unshakable certainty that I'd done the right thing, that speaking up had been worth it, that fighting back had been necessary, that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The city glittered below me, full of stories and struggles and small victories. Somewhere out there, another woman was sitting in the back corner of a boardroom, her work being presented by someone else, her contributions erased. Maybe she'd read my essay. Maybe she'd find the courage to speak up. Maybe she'd fight back and win, or fight back and lose, or decide the fight wasn't worth it. But at least she'd know she wasn't alone. At least she'd know it was possible. At least she'd know that sometimes, when you refuse to be made small, when you stand up and claim what's yours, when you tell the truth even when it's hard sometimes, the world listens. Sometimes you win, and sometimes winning looks like a corner office with a view of the harbor, a team that respects you, and your name finally attached to the work you created. Sometimes winning looks like getting to be yourself, fully and completely, without apology or compromise. Sometimes winning looks exactly like this.